If you get far enough in the main quest of Oblivion, you'll end up in Bruma, and you will be approached by the Countess of Bruma, Nerina Carvain's assistant, to visit with her. The Countess will have a quest for you. Nerina Carvain is a collector of Akaviri artifacts, and wants you to find a draconian Madstone. She gives you a very detailed description of the jewelry and all of the interesting pieces to it.
The stone is a fine bit of Akaviri craftsmanship. Worn like an amulet, this talisman is said to protect the wearer from poisons of any type. The Madstone appears as a snake coiled around and encircling itself. The eyes of the snake are supposed to be precious gems or some such.
And the in-game model looks nothing like it. It's just a generic necklace model, which is a little disappointing. The one location Nerina gives us to find a draconian Madstone is Pale Pass, which was once the stronghold for the Akaviri invasion of Tamriel. The location of Pale Pass is a mystery, though, and we go on a Morrowind-esque mission to find the fortress and recover the draconian Madstone. While doing so, we learn about the Akaviri, Reman Cyrodiil, the Amulet of Kings, and the founding of the Second Empire. And boy do things get a little weird. Before going on this lore deep dive, it would mean a lot if you would like the video and subscribe to the channel. It goes a long way to making more of these videos. Thank you. Nerina gives you a brief background on the Akaviri invasion and how Reman Cyrodiil defeated them, specifically with the help of Vivek and Morrowind, who made a deal with the Drew Trident King's beastmen to cut off the supplies to the Akaviri invaders.
Back at the end of the First Era, raiders from the continent of Akavir attempted to gain a foothold here in Tamriel. At that time, the Empire was broken into smaller factions. Reman Cyrodiil decided to unify them and form an army to repel the Akaviri raiders. The force became known as the Army of Reman. The two armies clashed in what's now northern Cyrodiil. The Akaviri were strong and well supplied. But their greatest error was marching through Morrowind on the way to their objective and dismissing the response it would garner from Vivek. They didn't count on Lord Vivek forming an alliance with the Trident Kings of the Dreg. From Morrowind he struck at their rear flank. Not only did this make the Akaviri fight on two fronts, it also cut off access to reinforcements and supplies from the sea. You must be joking, right? Who hasn't heard of the greatest known hero of the First Age? Reman Cyrodiil not only was the conqueror of the Akaviri forces, but he actually convinced them to help build the empire as it is today. With such an empire at his disposal, he conquered most of Tamriel, except Morrowind, of course, and was crowned emperor. In fact, he instituted the rites of becoming an emperor, which included the construction of the Amulet of Kings. His alliance with Lord Vivek during the Akaviri invasion is just one example of his cunning and ingenuity. Not quite. The army of Reman knew that the organized Akaviri forces were commanded from a hidden post in the mountains. Rumors placed it in a snowy vale called Pale Pass. That's where Reman focused his attention. As his forces fought their way across the Gerald Mountains, the Akaviri suddenly surrendered. It was assumed they were overwhelmed and gave up. The only strange part was that the command post and Pale Pass were never found. It was dismissed as a rumor, and the army of Reman celebrated.
This then led to Reman forming the Second Empire. Before getting to the Second Empire, the Akaviri invasion, and even the Akaviri, it would make sense to understand this Reman Cyrodiil guy and what makes him so special. And, oh boy, he's special. If you head up to Cloud Rural Temple, in the library you'll find a book called The Remanata. The first half of the Remanata is the story of Reman's birth. Cyrodiil wasn't in a good state before Reman's birth. The book gives an account of Cyrodiil. And in those days the empire of the Cyrodiils was dead, save in memory only. For through war and slug famine and iniquitous rulers, The west split from the east, and Colovia's estrangement lasted some 400 of years, and the earth was sick with sundering. Once worthy western kings of Anvil and Sarkel, of Falkreath and Delodil, became through pride and habit as like thief barons, and forgot covenant. In the heartland things were no better, as arcanists and false moth princes lay in drugged stupor, or the studies of vileness, and no one sat on the throne in dusted generations. Snakes and the warnings of snakes went unheeded, and the land bled with ghosts in deepest holes unto cold harbors. It is said that even the Chim al-Abdal, the amulet of kings of glory, had been lost, and its people saw no reason to find it. So morale in Cyrodiil is pretty low right now. Everyone is ignoring these snakes and the hints that some sort of snake civilization might be invading. Also, the amulet of kings is missing, and no one really cares about finding it. A guy named King Hrol decides to try and fix everything and goes on a vision quest with his knights. King Hrol comes upon a vision of Saint Alicia, the slave queen who liberates the Cyrodiil humans from the aliens. King Hrol pleads with the spirit of Saint Alicia. Hrol and his shield thane were the only ones to find her, and the king spoke to her, saying, "I love you, sweet Elis, sweet wife of Shor and of Uriel and the sacred bull, and would render this land alive again, not through pain, but through a return to the dragon fires of covenant, to join east and west and throw off all ruin." And the shield thane bore witness to the spirit opening naked to his king, carving on a nearby rock the words, "And Hrol did love unto a hillock," before dying in the sight of their union. When the 15 other knights found King Hrol, they saw him dead after his labors against a mound of mud. They parted each in their way, and some went mad, and the 2 that returned to their homeland beyond Twill would say nothing of Hrol, and acted ashamed for him. So basically, our guy Hrol fucked a hill. It was so bad that his best friend died watching it, and when the rest of the knights showed up, they found him dead with his dick in a pile of mud. When I first started on this lore deep dive, I didn't expect to end up at a guy dying sticking his dick in a hill. But here we are. Also, the fact that this story was in a book, in a video game that I played when I was 13, and I completely missed this, is hilarious. I would have gotten a huge kick out of this if I just didn't have ADHD and actually read the books while I was playing the game. And man, boy, was my 13-year-old brain missing out. But hey, it seems like the juice was worth the squeeze for our boy Hrol. Things seem to have worked out for him, I guess, in some ways. But after 9 months, that mound of mud became a small mountain, and there were whispers among the shepherds and bulls. A small community of believers gathered around that growing hill during the days of its first churning. And they were the first to name it the Golden Hill, Sancrator. And it was the shepherdess said Yenna who dared climb the hill when she heard his first cry. And at its peak she saw what it had yielded, an infant she named Reman, which is Light of Man. And in the child's forehead was Chim el Abadal, alive with the dragon fires of yore and divine promise. And none dared obstruct said Yenna when she climbed the steps of the white gold tower to place the babe Reman on his throne, where he spoke as an adult, saying, "I am Cyrodiil come." If you follow the main story quest of Oblivion, you will be in this guy's womb that he was born into, Sancrator, to go get the armor of Tiber Septim. So you have a special relationship with Reman now. Also, I love that conceiving with a hillock still takes 9 months to make a child. Like, that still had to be realistic. It had to still be a 9-month period of making a child, even though it was a hill that made the child. Not only was a baby born, but it had the amulet of kings in its forehead, reigniting the dragon fires and the divine promise. And I have to say, this started weird, and it ended pretty metal. Same with a baby speaking in an adult voice. And it also seems like apparently this was prophesized in the past, 2,000 years plus before all this even happened, supposedly Penel Whitestrake screamed out Reman Cyrodiil's name as sort of like a prophecy that eventually this guy would show up and create the Second Empire. So now we have a good idea who this Reman is, and understand how he would be able to stop the Akaviri invasion and create the Second Empire. It also seems to go without saying that Reman was a true blue Dragonborn, unlike Tiber Septim, who it seems like was able to give themselves the dragon blood through achieving Chim. It's pretty apparent when you have the dragon god's amulet stuck in your forehead that you're probably a Dragonborn. Now we can talk about Akavir, which is where the Akaviri originated from. Also, if you've played Oblivion or Skyrim, you will notice that many items of the blades are called Akaviri. The blades' roots and origins stem from the Akaviri, and that influence is strong throughout their history. It is also important to acknowledge the role Akavir plays as a plot device in the Elder Scrolls stories and lore. The role Akavir plays in Elder Scrolls is the mysterious Otherland, where monsters and threats come from, basically. It is in many ways the unknowable other. I think either Bethesda or someone like Todd Howard or Pete Hines or someone has explicitly stated that we will never be getting a game or story that directly takes place on Akavir, because then Akavir would cease to fulfill its purpose of being the mysterious other at that point. This is also reflected in Tamriel's style, art, and aesthetic primarily being Western fantasy, and the Akaviri cultural pieces, like what the blades possess, having an East Asian flavor to them. So obviously making that dichotomy of the difference between the two continents. We do have some information on the creatures from Akavir, and one even plays a large role in the Second Empire. Akavir is a continent of beasts and beastmen. Akavir means Dragonland. There are also the Kamal, which are snow demons who are known to thaw for the summer and attempt to conquest the other kingdoms. And then we have the Tang Mo, which is a kingdom of monkey men. There's also the Ka Po Tun, who is an empire of tiger cat folk similar to the Khajiit of Tamriel, but they seem to have a close relationship with dragons, and it seems like that they want to turn themselves into dragons, and that their leader apparently was successful in turning themselves into a giant black and orange dragon. And finally, we have the Tsaesci. I'm probably messing up that pronunciation, which are the serpent vampire beastmen. And they are the ones who attempted the first invasion of Tamriel. These snake men who Reman defeats at Pale Pass with the strategies and alliances with Vivek of Morrowind and the Trident King Druze, cutting off their supply lines. It is also believed that during the fighting for Pale Pass, after seeing Reman fight and using the Thun, or the Way of the Voice, or speaking with the dragon's voice, they realized that he is Dragonborn. The Tsaesci surrender, and Reman was able to convince the Tsaesci to join him in the formation of the Second Empire, which then conquered all of Tamriel except for Morrowind. These Tsaesci eventually become Reman's Dragon Guard, which eventually becomes the Blades. No longer snake men, but still with the same gear and aesthetic and culture. Even a Tsaesci ruled the empire for 400 years after the end of the Cyrodiil dynasty. Once again, I'm probably going to pronounce this wrong. His name was Versedu She. Versedu She was eventually assassinated by the Morang Tong, which is what led to the Second Era. Now, there does seem to be some inconsistency here, though. When you do a little detective work to find Pale Pass, which makes you fight an insane amount of ogres, sort of over and over and over again. It's kind of a little repetitive. I don't think you needed to have that many ogres blocking the way to Pale Pass. All of the Akaviri skeletons and the ghost of the Akaviri commander are just regular humans. So where are the snake men? This can't just be laziness from the game devs, because even in Alduin's Wall, the Tsaesci are depicted as being humans. The only mention of humans being from Akavir is that the Tsaesci consumed them all. So what gives? Is it snake men, or is it just humans who maybe pretend to be snake men? Are they just shapeshifters, or is this another dragon break similar to the warp in the West? It could also be the concept that being consumed means more of a cultural integration of men into the Tsaesci culture, and rather than actually eating them. My personal theory is that this is just another aspect of the purpose of Akavir being a mysterious other. We don't know exactly which is true until that definition needs to happen. This ambiguity seems to be confirmed in the ESO character Chevalier Renaud, who is a Tsaesci of the Dragon Guard. You can ask him, "How many of you are there? Too few for our troubles. It takes a resolute spirit to give everything for a cause. We shed our old skins and arose reborn in the service of his empire and the coiled king. I'll shed this skin as well when it's time for a new beginning." You mean you'll take a new identity, or were you speaking literally? Ha! I've said too much already. Draw your own conclusions, and if you speak of this encounter, embellish as you like. Our role is to fade into myth and shadow now, but our order has long since gained immortality that will outstrip our own. So, it could be said that Tsaesci are shapeshifters who are snake men, or it could be they have a cultural snake theme of a rebirthing process. We are just not going to fully know what the true answer is, and I doubt we will know in Elder Scrolls 6. We seem to be moving away from Akavir. Even the blades are seeming to fade into obscurity. If I had to guess, honestly, probably in Elder Scrolls 6, they're probably not even going to have representatives, because it seems like even in Skyrim, there's only like 2 blades left. So I would assume that maybe by the time Elder Scrolls 6 comes out, they'll be completely all gone, and maybe they'll just be relics purely, and there won't be any actual living blades still left around. So it wouldn't surprise me to see Bethesda keep the Tsaesci a secret and mysterious, which still goes with what Akavir has been the whole time in the Elder Scrolls lore, the big, mysterious, unknowable other. Some things are meant to be shrouded in mystery, like a guy having sex with a mound of dirt in order to create the next emperor, and then dies. Thanks for listening to my deep lore dive into Reman Cyrodiil, the Second Empire, Akavir, and the Akaviri culture. It would mean a lot if you liked the video and subscribed to the channel. And if you wouldn't mind considering supporting me on Patreon, it goes a long way to helping me make more of these videos. Thank you.